A Love Unspokrn. My name is Michael Evans, and this is the story of my life with Laura, my wife, my love, and my everything. It's a story of love that blossomed over years, of shared dreams, and of a tragic ending that came far too soon. I first met Laura when I was 24. I had just started my career as a software developer in New York City, fresh out of college and eager to make my mark on the world. Laura was a journalist working for a local newspaper. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, a party I almost didn't attend because of a late-night coding session. But fate had other plans. Laura was the kind of woman who could capture a room's attention without even trying. She had this infectious laugh, a warm smile, and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. I was immediately drawn to her, and by some stroke of luck we ended up talking for hours that night. We discussed everything: our dreams, our fears, our favorite books, and our least favorite foods. It felt like I had known her for years, and by the end of the night I knew I wanted to see her again. We exchanged numbers, and from that moment on, my life was never the same. Our relationship grew quickly. We went on dates every weekend, dinners at cozy little restaurants, walks in Central Park, late-night coffee at 24-hour diners. We were inseparable. Laura had a way of making even the most mundane activities feel special. Grocery shopping turned into an adventure, and rainy days became an excuse to stay in and binge-watch old movies. I fell in love with her, completely and utterly. Laura was kind, thoughtful, and had a sense of humor that always caught me off guard. She was also fiercely independent, and I admired her for it. She had her own life, her own goals, and yet she made room for me in every part of it. 2 years after we started dating, I proposed to her. I took her to the place where we had our first date, a little Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. I was nervous, my heart pounding as I got down on one knee, but the look on her face when she realized what was happening was worth every second of anxiety. She said yes, tears in her eyes, and at that moment, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Our wedding was a small, intimate affair, just close friends and family. We didn't need anything extravagant, all we wanted was to start our life together. We moved into a modest apartment in Brooklyn, close to the subway and our favorite coffee shop. It wasn't much, but it was ours, and we loved it. Life was good. Laura continued her work as a journalist, often bringing home stories that fascinated me. I would listen for hours as she recounted her day, her eyes lighting up as she talked about the people she met and the places she visited. I continued my work in software, moving up the ranks and eventually leading my own team. We were both busy, but we always made time for each other. We talked about our future often. We wanted children, a house with a backyard, and maybe a dog. We dreamed of traveling the world, seeing the places we had only read about in books. There was so much we wanted to do, so much life we wanted to live together. It started as a small cough, something neither of us thought much of. Laura had always been healthy, rarely even catching a cold, so when she started feeling a bit under the weather, we assumed it was just a passing bug. But the cough lingered, growing worse with each passing week. I urged her to see a doctor, but she brushed it off, saying she was just tired from work. But as the weeks turned into months, the cough didn't go away. It became more persistent, more alarming. Eventually, she agreed to see a doctor, more to ease my worries than anything else. The news hit us like a freight train. The doctors found something, a mass in her lungs. They ran more tests, and the results were devastating. Laura had lung cancer, it was aggressive, and it had already spread. I remember sitting in the doctor's office, holding her hand as the words washed over us. I felt like I was drowning, the air thick with fear and uncertainty. Laura, always the strong one, squeezed my hand and told me we would get through it together. Laura began treatment immediately: chemotherapy, radiation, everything the doctors recommended. She fought with everything she had, enduring the pain, the nausea, the endless doctor's appointments. She lost her hair, her strength, but never her spirit. She was determined to beat this, to live the life we had planned. I was by her side every step of the way. I took time off work, wanting to be there for her, to support her in any way I could. We spent long days in the hospital, surrounded by the sterile smell of antiseptic and the constant hum of machines. But through it all, we tried to keep our spirits up. We watched movies, played cards, and talked about the future we still hoped to have. But despite our best efforts, the cancer continued to spread. The doctors were grim, their faces heavy with the knowledge they tried to convey gently. The treatments weren't working. The cancer was too advanced, too aggressive. As Laura's condition worsened, we made the decision to bring her home. She wanted to spend her final days in the place she loved, surrounded by the things that made her happy. We set up a hospital bed in the living room, where she could look out the window and see the skyline of the city she adored. Those final days were both beautiful and heartbreaking. We talked about everything: our memories, our dreams, the life we had lived together. We didn't shy away from the reality of the situation, but we also didn't let it overshadow the love we had shared. Laura was at peace with what was happening, more at peace than I was. She told me not to be sad, that she had lived a good life, that she had been loved deeply, and that was more than many people could say. But I couldn't imagine a life without her. The thought of losing her was unbearable. One evening, as the sun set over the city, casting a golden glow over everything, Laura took my hand. Her grip was weak, but her eyes were still bright, still full of life. "Michael," she whispered, her voice soft, "I love you. I always have, and I always will. Promise me you'll remember that. Promise me you'll keep living, keep dreaming, even after I'm gone." I couldn't speak, my throat tight with emotion. I just nodded, tears streaming down my face. She smiled, a small, peaceful smile, and closed her eyes. That was the last time I saw her alive. Laura passed away quietly in her sleep that night. I was by her side, holding her hand as she took her final breath. The room was silent, the only sound the faint hum of the city outside. I felt a profound emptiness, a hollow ache that I knew would never go away. The days that followed were a blur. There were funeral arrangements to be made, family and friends to be notified, a life to be celebrated and mourned. I went through the motions, numb, barely able to comprehend the reality of what had happened. The funeral was a small, intimate affair, just as she would have wanted. We gathered in a little church, the same church where we had exchanged our vows and said our goodbyes. I spoke at the service, though I don't remember much of what I said. I only remember the overwhelming sense of loss, of emptiness. It's been a year since Laura passed, and not a day goes by that I don't think of her. Our apartment is still filled with her presence, the books she loved, the pictures we took together, the little trinkets that made our house a home. Sometimes I find myself talking to her as if she's still here, still listening. I've tried to move on, to find some semblance of normalcy, but it's hard. Everywhere I go, I see reminders of her, of the life we had, the life we were supposed to have. I miss her laugh, her smile, the way she would curl up next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. But despite the pain, despite the loss, I know that I was lucky. I was lucky to have loved her, to have been loved by her. Our time together may have been cut short, but it was full of joy, of laughter, of love. And that's something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Laura once told me that love is the most powerful force in the world, that it can transcend even death. I believe that now. Her love is still with me, guiding me, comforting me, even in her absence. It's in the memories we made, in the dreams we shared, in the life we built together. So I keep living, keep dreaming, just as she asked. I take each day as it comes, finding solace in the knowledge that she's at peace, that she's watching over me. And though I miss her more than words can express,